What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to continue to examine 100 years of world championship fights. And I want to talk about Gene Fullmer and Dick Tiger. What a fight series these men would have, beginning in 1963. But before we have this conversation, I must clean up this middleweight championship mess. And it was a mess in conversation, because I have to explain exactly why these two men would face one another and why it was important that they did. November 1941, Billy Seuss would voluntarily give up his claim of the World Middleweight Championship belt because he claimed he couldn't make weight, so he left the division. Now, he was scheduled to face Georgie Abrams. So Georgie Abrams was left in the cold. Couldn't just take the title. So he was the middleweight claimant. So November 28th, 1941, Georgie Abrams would take on Gary Indiana's Tony Zale. And since Tony Zale would defeat Georgie Abrams, he would now become the undisputed middleweight champion of the world. July 26, 1946. Tony Zale would knock out Rocky Graziano in defense of his middleweight championship belt. But that same year, Walker Smith, Ray Robinson, would become the fourth black welterweight champion in boxing history. He would take on Tommy Bell of Ohio. July 16, 1947, Rocky Graziano would knock out Tony Zale in Chicago, 6 rounds, and now he would become the middleweight champion of the world. Meanwhile, you had Charlie Burley, Holman Williams, Jake LaMotta left to fight one another. Now, Jake LaMotta never faced Charlie Burley, but he did take on Holman Williams. June 10th, 1948, Tony Zale would knock out Rocky Graziano. In the third round, Newark, New Jersey, and the referee was Paul Cavalier. Wow, did he give me the details on that fight? Once again, Charlie Burley was overlooked, as well as Jake LaMotta. Because on September 21st, 1948, Marcel Cerdan would knock out Tony Zale, Roosevelt Stadium in New Jersey. Once again, the referee was Paul Cavalier. And Tony Zale would collapse in the arms of the referee. Now, Marcel Cerdan from Casablanca would now become the middleweight champion of the world. June 16, 1949, Jake LaMotta would stop Marcel Cerdan at Briggs Stadium in Detroit. He would become the world middleweight champion. And there was a lot of suspicion going on with Jake LaMotta, because in New York's Madison Square Garden, it was alleged that Jake LaMotta would take a dive with Philadelphia's blackjack Billy Fox. The word on the street was Jake LaMotta helped his brother to pay off a debt to the mob. Jake would refuse to take a dive, but he was stopped in the 4th round. Never forgave his brother Joe LaMotta for that. But the suspicion was, when Jake got the shot with Marcel Cerdan for taking the dive with blackjack Billy Fox, Jake took the $20,000 and bet it on himself. Marcel Cerdan did not answer the bell for the 10th round. Claimed he had an injured shoulder. And Marcel Cerdan would fly back over the sign of return go, but unfortunately his plane would crash. That didn't help Jake LaMotta's reputation. February 14th, 1951, Ray Robinson will knock out Jake LaMotta in 13 rounds. It would be known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. What a beautiful 8-punch combination. It placed Jake on the ropes, but Jake would not go down. But on July 10th, 1951, Randy Turpin would defeat Ray Robinson in 15 rounds on points in London, England. September 12th, 1951, Ray Robinson would redeem himself by stopping Randy Turpin in 10 rounds at the New York Polo Grounds. What was so interesting about 1951? And I've said this several times. 1940 and 1951. Two most interesting years in the game of Fisticuffs. Because 1940 would graduate some of the greatest fighters in boxing history from the amateur ranks. Yet Willie Pep became the featherweight champion. Ezra Charles would become a heavyweight champion. Ray Robinson would become a welterweight middleweight champion. Ike Williams would become a lightweight champion. And all those men would lose their title in 1951, every last one of them. December 18th, 1952, Ray Robinson would retire as an undefeated champion. He would lose an attempt to become the light heavyweight champion when he took on Joey Maxim from Ohio. And Ray Robinson was setting up a match with Davy Sands, who was the Australian light heavyweight champion, but he didn't become the world heavyweight champion. Light heavyweight champion. So he was not able to have that fight with Davy Sands. And then Davy Sands would have an unfortunate accident. Overturned truck. And he would die. What a fight that would have been to watch. Now, an elimination match was granted. You had Randy Turpin, who took on Charlie Humps. Carl Bobo Olsen would take on Patty Young. And when Carl Bobo Olsen defeated Patty Young, he became the America's middleweight champion. Randy Turpin would become the England's middleweight champion. So June 9th, 1953, that would set up a match between Randy Turpin and Charlie Humps. June 19th, 1953, Carl Bobo Olsen would outpoint Patty Young, 15 rounds. And he would earn that America's middleweight championship belt. October 21st, 1953, Carl Bobo Olsen would outpoint Randy Turpin, 15 rounds. And he would now be universally recognized as the world middleweight champion. December 9th, 1955, Ray Robinson would make a comeback by knocking out Carl Bobo Olsen. And he would be on his second reign from his comeback, but his third reign of middleweight champion. December 9th, 1955 was some year. Because that's the year that Archie Moore will face Rocky Marciano. Marciano will retire in 1956. That would be the year of Emmett Till. Boxing was finding its way at this point. January 2nd, 1957, Gene Fullmer would defeat Ray Robinson 15 rounds in New York. Now Gene Fullmer would become the middleweight champion of the world. May 1st, 1957, Ray Robinson would win, for the fourth time, the middleweight champion of the world when he would knock out Gene Fullmer. One of the most beautiful left hooks ever thrown, not only in middleweight history, but in boxing history. Nothing like that was ever seen before. Now the issue will now take place January 22nd, 1960. Boston, Massachusetts. Ray Robinson would take on Paul Pender and not Gene Fullmer as contracted. And the reason why Ray Robinson didn't take on Gene Fullmer, because Gene Fullmer's manager, Merv Jensen, was asking for equal split. Ray Robinson wasn't having that. Ray Robinson wanted all the television rights. And he wanted 60-30. So the next opponent would be Paul Pender. But the problem was the NBA didn't recognize that championship fight. So they stripped Ray Robinson of the NBA version of the middleweight championship division. But the problem was Paul Pender would now defeat Ray Robinson. June 10th, 1960, Paul Pender would remain the middleweight champion with a rematch of Ray Robinson. 15 rounds in Boston, Massachusetts. This shocked the world. Because never before was Ray Robinson defeated twice. Ray Robinson always avenged his losses. And people didn't know how to handle this. It was not in the script. But Paul Pender would lose his NBA middleweight championship crown. And it was very interesting of what was actually happening before everyone's very eyes. Because nothing like this has ever happened before. July 11th, 1961, Terry Downs would win the title by stopping Paul Pender in 9 rounds. London, England. April 7th, 1962, Paul Pender would regain his title by winning a unanimous 15-round decision over Terry Downs, Boston, Massachusetts. October 23rd, 1962, Dick Tiger would win the WBA title by winning a unanimous 15-round decision over Gene Fullmer, San Francisco, California. Dick Tiger would lose his European title to Wilfie Greaves. Because that's how the Gene Fullmer and Dick Tiger fight was being set up. November 9th, 1962, it would be announced that New York State Athletic Commission, the British Board of Boxing Control, and the European Boxing Union have withdrawn recognition of Paul Pender and Dick Tiger to become the world middleweight champion. November 12th, 1962. Paul Pender would file suit New York's State Athletic Commission for the return of his title and reversal of that decision. Meanwhile, Dick Tiger and Gene Fullmer would go at it for 15 rounds. It would be a draw. Las Vegas, Nevada, February 23rd, 1963. That a match was proposed, but Dick Tiger and Paul Pender fell through. Paul Pender said the hell with it. He packed his bags and he retired. May 7th, 1963. Dick Tiger was then given universal recognition of the World Middleweight Championship belt. But December 7th, 1963, a young man from Brooklyn who would relocate to Philadelphia. Then he would come back to Cherry Hill. His name was Joey Giardello. He would win the title from Dick Tiger, New Jersey's Atlantic City, 15 rounds. But October 21st, 1965, Dick Tiger would regain his middleweight championship belt from Joey Giardello, New York's Madison Square Garden, 15 rounds. Dick Tiger would then lose his crown to Emil Griffith. I want to take a look at a fight between these two men. A hell of a fight this was. My God. Now, Dick Tiger and Gene Fullmer would mix it up 3 separate occasions. Here's the rematch. Las Vegas, Nevada. Gene Fullmer and Dick Tiger. Right now we're looking at Gene Fullmer and Benny Kid Paret. Kid Paret was the welterweight champion after he would defeat Emil Griffith. Gene Fullmer was the NBA middleweight champion of the world. I'm going to show you the ranking system. Benny Paret didn't want any part. Oh, my God. Of a third match with Emil Griffith. So he went on to take on Gene Fullmer, moved up in weight as welterweight to the middleweight division. That was a mistake on the part of Benny Paret and his camp. Gene Fullmer was supposed to take on Ruben Hurricane Carter or Georgie Benton. And instead he would take on Benny Paret.
Outside of the rope, bending down, Gene's father, Chuck Fullmer, and Charles Funbeck, his auxiliary trainer, is on the outside of the rope.
The gentleman who's back to you is Jen Johnson. They call him Merv Johnson. Jensen. That's the manager of Gene Fullmer.
From the left-hand side is manager Manuel Alvaro, and the veteran cutman, Johnny Sulo, is working on his face right now. Sulo, a very popular man in the fight business, by the way. Fullmer, the white trunks, red and black. They've been liberally sprinkled or spread with Vaseline again on their faces.
My God, the short punches on the inside that Gene Fullmer is landing is remarkable. Beautiful short punches on the inside. Now, a nice comeback by Benny Paret. But he's fighting a bigger man's game. And Gene Fullmer is one of the roughest fighters in the middleweight division. Can't fight him that way. Once again, Benny Paret is the welterweight champion in that fight. Gene Fullmer is the NBA middleweight champion in that fight. Oh my God, what uppercuts. Unbelievable uppercuts. Benny Paret is being landed by Gene Fullmer. Oh my God, what punches are being thrown by both men? With a mean headbutt by Benny Kid Paret. Oh my God.
20 seconds left in the round.
Oh my God, he's hurt.
Seems to have him in trouble again in Paret's corner. This is not only a full picture, it's all the players. There goes Paret now. His first knockdown of the fight. They forget that the mandatory 8 count has been waived. They forget that the mandate has been waived. Somebody threw one there. That's the first knockdown of the fight.
Oh, what an uppercut by Gene Fullmer. Now, the 8 knockdown count was waived in his fight. Benny Kid Paret benefited a little bit with 4 counts.
This is round 10.
But this is one time Benny Kid Paret could have used a standing 8 count. Oh, Benny Kid Paret is fighting back like a warrior. But he's mixing it up with a middleweight. And a slugger at that.
Those rallies take something out of a fighter. Now let's see what happens. Especially a fighter who has...
My God, the inside punches Gene Fullmer's delivering. Oh my goodness. This is one time they should stop this fight. Paret has no chance. Oh my God.
Here's the announcement by Chuck Hall. Gene Fullmer.
When the announcer is Chuck Hall, those who are watching him, that's Don Fullmer, his younger brother to his right. Chuck Hall was the ring announcer back in the 80s, early 90s. And this is Don Fullmer.
Middleweight championship in one of the most grueling fights of all time. Gene, were you ever in a more grueling fight?
No, well, I'll tell you, I liken this guy to Gil Turner because he was rough and kept throwing him, and I wasn't underselling him because he's every bit as rough as I thought he'd be.
Well, Gene,
Matter of fact, a little more, I believe.
Gene, you had him badly hurt, I thought, in round 6, and yet he bounced back to give you the Merry White out in the next 2 rounds.
This guy's nobody's fool, I'll tell you. He's a rough guy. They're taking nothing away from the guy. Let's say I was lucky.
Well, no, you weren't lucky, but you were in a rough fight. Gene, I want to ask, getting away from this fight for a moment.
Famous Don Dunphy ring announcer.
About the Middleweight Championship of the world, you're recognized in 48 states, and Terry Downs of England is recognized in New York and Massachusetts. Now, what can we do to clear that up?
That's where this problem started.
Terry Downs and this to me, we cleared up one way or another because I would gladly fight him for his 2 or him my 48, but it seems like he's tied up with other obligations or so.
With Paul Pender.
Because we've been trying for some time to get him in the ring, and to no avail. So what's going to happen, I don't know. But I would be glad to clear up the situation, either on Raw or not.
Fine. Well, you dislocated your elbow, wasn't it, in the Florentino Fernandez
Yes,
fight?
I broke it at that fight.
You broke it in around the 14th round.
That's right.
Has that completely healed?
It's never felt better, Don. I can't remember when it did feel better. It doesn't hurt at all now. It hasn't hurt at all during training. Matter of fact, I believe that was a lucky break for me because it's better than it has been for the last 3 or 4 fights.
That was Gene Fullmer, the NBA middleweight champion of the world, getting a great hand from the crowd.
Now, Terry Downs couldn't face Gene Fullmer. He had obligations of giving Paul Pender a return go. And that's what happened in that mix-up. Here's Benny Kid Paret. I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. We'll continue with Benny Kid Paret and Emo Griffith, 1962. 100 years of world championship fights. So Gene Fullmer and Benny Kid Paret mix it up. Meanwhile, Gene Fullmer, Carmen Basilio, will fight for the vacant NBA middleweight championship belt. Gene Fullmer would knock out Carmen Basilio twice. Gene Fullmer would lose his title to Dick Tiger.